Welcome back to Context. We are joined today by Brian Katz, head men's basketball coach and major mentor in my life at Sacramento State University. Coach, thank you for being here today. Really excited to talk to you.
Appreciate you having me, Clymer. It's always awesome. I always said when you left Sacramento, there was a little spot in everyone's heart that was taken away.
Well, I appreciate that, and do my best to stay in touch and continue to keep the network alive. And this is a big part of that. So if you don't mind, take us through your background as a coach. How did you end up in coaching, and, you know, the jobs that you've had along the way, and the one that you currently have as the head coach at Sac State?
You know, it's interesting. Never really made a decision ever about to be a coach or not. It was sort of like one of those things where I just knew that I would be. Best example I give you, when I was in seventh grade, I coached my brother's fourth grade team. It was the first time I ever coached. By the way, good, funny story. He scored 26 of the 28. And we lost 30-28, and I blamed him all the way home. So right there about player relationships, not the great way to get started there. You know, played high school basketball and baseball, but knew I was just average at best. So started coaching right when I was 18 years old. You know, I mean, I coached seventh grade all the way up to ended up being a varsity coach at 23 at Castro Roble High School, then was the varsity coach at Center High School, then decided, you know what, I want to find out what college basketball is all about. So I called up Dick Davey at Santa Clara and said, hey, can I come as a graduate assistant? Was there 2 years. Then took the JC route, 4 years at Lassen College, 15 at San Joaquin Delta, and going into year 13 here at Sac State. Just what I would just say is this, like, I think probably the first time I ever, like, you know, it kind of like communicated to myself was probably when I was 14 as a freshman. I remember I was sitting on the bench watching the game going, now when I'm coaching, this is what I'm going to do. And then it just kind of went, but I never thought of anything else. I always say, for me, and I do believe this, I think coaching is a calling. Mm-hmm. I relate it to the priesthood. Heard a guy years ago, he said, if you can get out of the priesthood, you probably should. If you cannot, you know it's your calling. Well, I think that's coaching, at least for me anyway.
That's a great answer. And I just talked to the women's soccer coach at Sonoma State, and I forget the word she used, but she said she's tried to extricate herself from coaching many times over the years and is still doing it. And I wish I had that line when I was talking to her, because that's great. What role? Well, let me backpedal here for a second. So you went from coaching seventh grade to high school to being an assistant at the 4-year level, going to the JC, then going back to the 4-year level as a head coach. And in each one of those stops, I would imagine that you thought you had things figured out, even to your point, when I'm coaching, this is what I'm going to do. What did you learn very quickly at each of those stops that you didn't know and that you had to figure out?
Real quickly, you learn you don't know as much as you think you do. And every single one of them in a different way. You know, when I went to Santa Clara, was the coach at Center High School. You know, we were really good. I think the last year we were number one in Sacramento for 6-8 weeks or something like that. We'd won 25 in a row, you know, the whole deal. You know, 29 years old, I thought I knew something. I went down to Santa Clara within the first week. I knew nothing, like zero, like it was like nothing. Then when you went to junior college, you know, you thought you knew, oh, I'm coming down from Division I. You realize, ooh, this is different. This is different. This is what I would say. There's always a different set of variables. Mm-hmm. Always, always, always. And you got to figure out, for me, I had to figure out what those were, and then you can tailor the job to that. Mm-hmm. And they are different at every level. They are different, I believe.
What would you say was the most eye-opening realization at each one of those stops? Because they are so different for people that haven't experienced them, right? Coaching high school, coaching junior college, coaching Division I athletics, you know, coaching middle school. They're very different. But what are the things that jump out that are like, this is really a priority at this stop?
Well, it would have been different at each school. What I could say, like, for example, in junior college, to me, I knew the priority had to be academics. And and it is at our place now. And I would say, like, maybe I could segue. You had a question down. You said something like in the pre-notes, you said, what's the one thing that would have a ripple effect that's been an effect? It's going to sound really simple, but I think academics, and I'll tell you why. I think if you really stress academics, and I don't mean talk it, like stress it, then two things happen. One, you end up getting only really good kids, okay? Kids that are serious about moving on and doing things right and holding above. And then the other thing is they learn when you go the extra mile with them. Like when I was in junior college, I ran study hall, and I mean, toward the end of my career, I ended up getting paid for it. But the first 12 or 14, I didn't get any money for it. Just did it for free. I think what it says to the kid is, wow, he really cares about me. So you're going to get a more, I don't know if smarter is the right word. I don't think that's the right word. The word you're going to get is a more disciplined kid. And as a result, I think the academic, like here's an example. When I coached high school, we never had anybody that didn't graduate. When I coached junior college, we had 109 out of 115, only 6 guys in 19 years that did not graduate and go to 4-year school. At Sac State, we're 42 out of 43. Now you could say, and I understand we're paid to win. I get that. But I think that helps you win. That's just my thing.
Well, and to your point of it shows the athletes that you care about them, especially in a situation where the outcome of the games seems to be what gets all the attention and the academic component is often an afterthought. By you putting that at the forefront of the equation for these students and these athletes, you're telling them, I'm investing not just in your basketball, but in your future.
Yeah, maybe, the best way I could explain this, and I won't use the kid's name because he didn't do anything wrong, but I don't want to. We had a gentleman that transferred in and he could have played immediately, and the family wanted to get him a waiver to play. And we told him, no, because you will not graduate. You need to be here. You need to be here an extra year so you can graduate. And if you play, I know how that goes. You'll be gone. So good player, could have really helped us that year. And that's fine. But we didn't feel in good conscience. We didn't feel good about that. Like that really wouldn't have been what was best for him. And ultimately now he will graduate, and it's a great story. And so you have opportunities. I always say this, like, do your words and your actions line up? If they do, you're authentic. If they don't, you're not. So we try to be authentic. We're not perfect, but we try to be.
Well, I would venture to say that that's one of the things that you can always count on with you, is that your words and your actions are going to match up, and you've never been one to allow a short-term gain to get in the way of the long-term lesson or the opportunity to add value to someone's life rather than, what somebody else might feel is pressing or urgent in that moment. Are there, and this is interesting because we were talking, over the years we've talked, and we were just talking before we started recording in general about the people in our lives and the support that we've had. But, going down and spending time at Santa Clara as an assistant, and then outside of that, you've pretty much been a head coach. Was there anything you took with you from that experience that has stayed with you throughout? And then are there things that you've taken directly from the mentors that you've been able to surround yourself with, that you bring into your program in a way to enhance the lives of those around you?
Well, the whole Santa Clara thing, the whole model, I'd like to just, the Carol Williams, Dick Davey model is pretty much what we do. And that wasn't intentional. It just sort of happens. You're kind of a product of who you are. For sure. Carol Williams is the most organized person I've ever seen on the face of the earth. His practice plan, everything from what time, how many steps it is from the door to the water fountain. I mean, but the other thing that I really learned from it, I think it's helped us a lot, is the ability to utilize every coach on the staff to school him up within the framework of what you do, yet allow them, once they earn their stripes, to be creative and then to help you. So as an example, a high compliment I felt we were paid last year. We played at Santa Clara. Carol watched us practice. He said, I've never seen 5 coaches work together like that. Never. And bottom line on the deal was, that came from Carol and from Dick. And what they did is, again, like the other part too is this: you have to, I always say this, and you're going to think this is corny, but I believe it's 100%. First book I ever read was called Daily Life by Chuck Daly in the mid 80s. And he had a line in there that said, never hire anyone who's not smarter than you. Now, at the time I read that, I thought that was a bunch of junk. I don't buy that. He's so spot on. Why would you hire someone who's not smarter than you? Like, what do they add? Mm-hmm. Okay, now for me, and you could argue, like Rich Ressa, when I was at Delta 11 years, and now Brandon Laird, if you took their IQ and compared it to mine, theirs is way bigger than mine or higher, and that's fine. But or do they have a certain expertise, something that they're really good at that you can learn from? I really learned that from Carol and Dick. I remember we'd have 5-hour meetings, and every assistant would go around the room and say what they thought, and Carol would sit and say, well, what do you think? And he'd listen, he wouldn't really give any, and then, okay, great. And then the next day we'd do kind of a compilation of what Carol wanted from all of that. Or maybe there was one thing from that he chose, or maybe he's went, yeah, I listen to you guys, but that doesn't work for me. Here's what we're going to do. So like my staff now, I have Chris Walker going into year 10, AJ Writing going into year 12, Brandon Laird going into year 10, Nate Smith going into year 10. So those guys really are very similar in that way. They are all very good coaches. They're all very smart. Chris Walker is the smartest player I ever coached. It's not even close. And all those guys will be very, very good head coaches. But I think, in my opinion, the art of being a great assistant is understanding what is your head coach really all about, what works for him, and then you don't waste a lot of time on stuff that doesn't make sense for him. And then the ability to keep you in check and not let you self-destruct. So as a result, to be able to say, here's a simple conversation, they'll do this. Coach, why are we talking about this guy? Your body language is not excited. We know how you are when you like a guy. Why are we talking about him? Right. And you go, oh yeah, you're right. So we move on. They always make the joke that they can tell, like when I sit up in the chair, my eyes are open and that I like a guy. We talk about recruiting, but they'll also say, Coach, we've done enough. You're overdoing this. And I know it comes from a place of wanting the program to succeed, wanting all of us to succeed, and not from a place of ego.
Yeah, right. Well, I think on that note, the lesson that people maybe can't read into, so I'm going to try to pull it out a little bit more because I've known you for so long, is at this point in your career, you are very specific about, let's just call them your non-negotiables. This is what we do. This is how we're going to do it. There's a little bit of wiggle room, but look, I know what a Katz guy is. I know what a Sac State Hornet is. This is what we're looking for. And there's not a lot of wiggle room there. And it's, I think what has allowed you to be successful at every stop, so to speak, and that your assistants have got to figure out, what fits in that mold and what the areas that are negotiable are, right? And so what are those things for you as you recruit, as you hire staff, as you surround yourself with people and bring into your program to enhance the lives of your athletes?
Yeah, I think the first thing, honestly, you're going to think it's goofy, but it's very simple: loyalty. And I'll tell you why. Even with a player, I think players and coaches, I think when things get tough, what are you going to do? Are you going to bail out and blame others? Or are you going to be loyal? Now, that's a big thing with me. We're recruiting a kid. Does he have the ability? I always want to know. I want to talk to everybody who knows him. But one thing for sure, I like to know, does he have a relationship with his high school coach? And I want to listen to him talk about his high school coach. And look, I know there's coaches out there that aren't perfect. My relationships with kids for the most part are good, but I've had a few that aren't great. I don't want to act like, you couldn't have a less than positive relationship with a young man. We all can, but it's more about how they talk about him. Is it with respect? Is it loyalty? So number one is loyalty. Number two, hardworking. Now, if you're loyal and you're hardworking, player or assistant, you'll figure the rest of it out. Mm-hmm. You really will. We say grinders. Is the kid a grinder? Does he want to get in the gym? Does he want to work? Does he want to sweat? Is he loyal and is he a worker? Is he loyal and is he a grinder? Well, he'll succeed because he'll figure out a way. Okay, so take your assistant coaches. If they're loyal and they're hardworking, they'll figure out a way. I have people try to tell me, oh, you should hire a recruiter. And I go, well, here's what recruiting is. It's, can you recruit to the head coach? And it's hard work. So if the person's loyal and if the person's hardworking, you'll figure out recruiting. So.
And that's the key, right? Is how do you operate within the structure and personalities of those that you work with and for? And you mentioned the key to being a good assistant. You talked a little bit about that. Knowing yourself, knowing that you are very opinionated about the things that you believe in, how then do you offer advice to others who are maybe in a similar situation that have some good ideas and want to know how to deliver those in a way that they'll be received? What's that like?
You mean like when you're trying to talk to maybe other people, maybe about like, okay, let's just say, like I had a young JC coach came in this year and said, hey, can we talk a little bit about this, and this? You mean like how you would advise him?
Well, yeah. And for example, like when you used to come to my practice and I would come down to yours, if I wanted to share something with you, I could do so. And it didn't really matter whether you listened to it or if I listened to it or not, because we both went back our normal way, right? But as an assistant, I've always said your job is to get told no 99 times and still be able to make the 100th suggestion and not take it personally when you get told no. And how do you, when you are someone like yourself, coach, who does things a very particular way, and you're always looking for that next edge, but you want to invite that and you want to empower that, how do you, for people that maybe don't have the self-confidence to do that, how do you encourage them to step into that cauldron?
Well, I think number one, if you really understand what you value and also that you don't know everything, and that you want to have a culture built on honesty. Like it's got to be built on honesty. Like your staff's got to be able to say, like, and I use this term, and I'll just say this. I think we've been really improved in the last few years on our ability to communicate with dissenting opinion. And you want dissenting. I want dissenting opinion. I need it. I need to be sure that I'm not missing something, that I don't have a blind spot. So I tell the way we kind of communicate, like, Brand, here's the key buzzword that'll take, coach, I really feel strongly that, okay, that means beep, 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 beep. Okay. So, hey, high alert. He really thinks strongly we should recruit this kid, or he really thinks strongly that our post defense is not very good, needs work. So I think the key is then, do you listen, and then I think there's a time, certainly sometimes you say, yeah, I like that. But what's been really best for me is to really practice patience and pause and don't say anything, nothing, till the person is done. And it's hard for me. It's hard. We're laughing. Brandon is very thoughtful and I'm very impulsive. He's very deliberate. I'm very impulsive. That's why it's a good relationship. I call him Steady Eddie. He keeps me, in line. So, but I think the key is it's hard, but I've kind of learned, just listen, let the person speak, maybe pause 10 seconds afterward, and then give your thoughts on it. And your thought might be, I'm not sure on that yet. I need more information, or God, I just don't think it's going to work for me. Or, you know what? You might be onto something today. You might be onto something. And I might be, hey, listen, Nate, okay, so you're really sold on this poacher box things on the rebound, right? I can tell. Yeah, I really am, coach. Okay, on O boards, so you want to send a guy to the poacher box? Yes, I do. Okay, well, I need some data. I need some information. I need you to show me, like, give me some clips, give me some information. And also, why don't you right now just kind of go up to the board and just show me what you're talking about? And then just, it's not like a judgment, like right now. It's more of a gaining information. And then when you feel good about it, you go from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it might be, pressure over time, right? Like Shawshank, where it's just drips that over time, where, you know, it takes you a while to get comfortable, and the person that you're asking almost has to go and reevaluate their commitment to the principle they're trying to sell you. Like, how much do you believe in this? Like, are you willing to go and do the extra work to make sure that this fits with what we do?
Yeah, you know, the hardest thing for me going from JC to Division I was this. And Bob Williams, you know, we're talking about, ironically, this interview really helped me do some things. You always do some reflecting, but I realized that all of my friends are older coaches. Every single one of them. They're older coaches. Okay. So Bob Williams, you know, I say older, he's 5 years older than me, whatever, or 6 or 7. He told me, you got to line up every guy, bring him in, look him dead in the eye and say, are you a Katz guy? And let it hang. And if they say yes, well, okay, great. But if it's like, well, you know, wait, hey, no problem. If you aren't, it's good. But you got to be, in his case, a Williams guy, or you got to go. I mean, so for me to do that was really hard, because it's like, and when you say a Sac State guy, certainly that matters. But at the end of the day, that person has to be, whatever the head coach's name is, a Katz guy, a Climo guy, he's got to be. Mm-hmm. So if he's not, he'll figure that out, and so will you, and go from there. But I think on the way, on the interview or the entry process, if you kind of make that clear, I think you'll get rid of, some people will just weed themselves out. Mm-hmm. You know, typically I've talked to assistants before, and they'll kind of say things like, I'm talking about guys that want to work for you. They'll say, they'll tell you all about what they can do. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm more interested in their ability to be loyal and hardworking, and then study our program and me, and then get real knowledgeable within the framework of what we do. Yep. And then from there can be some creativity. Mm-hmm. But there really can't be till you really understand what we're trying to do, mm-hmm. who I am, what our core values are, who our assistants are, what they're, you know, the whole thing. Here's a phrase, I'll give you one. I believe in any organization, the number one biggest thing, now I'll use coaching, the head coach's ability to get everyone in the organization to see the game through his eyes. Every person, from the manager to the trainer to the strength coach to the 15th man, they have to be able to see the game through the head coach's eyes. That's ultimately your goal.
Right, because ultimately what that does is it allows them to understand what your expectations are as the head coach for each player, each assistant, and what you're seeing out there, one, so they can execute that, and two, so that they can then help fill in potentially the blind spots that you're trying to make sure you have covered.
Yeah, and you know what they do? They solve more problems before they ever get to your table. You're not even aware of a lot of it. Mm-hmm. As an example, like AJ Writing and Chris played for me, which is just great, because it can be real simple. It could be like this. Like, let's say a kid, he struggles with, I don't really know what's a good shot. Wait a minute. Okay, well, what are you talking about? Okay, no. That's not what he means. This is what he means. And it's also, hey, go talk to him. Mm-hmm. No, go talk to him. Not, and this is a big one. This is a big mistake assistants make. I'll talk to him for you. No. That implies you're on the player's side, not the head coach's. So it's got to be, you can help clarify, you can get in the trenches and solve a lot of problems, mm-hmm. but also ultimately you can say, no, this isn't what coach means. Or, hey, he's hard on you. You know why he's hard on you? I think you could be pretty good. You know why I know that? Because he was really hard on me. Mm-hmm. And hey, there's days when you're not going to like it. And I didn't like it either, but guess what? It turned out pretty good for me.
Absolutely. So and I'm in a similar situation, I'm curious what your take is and what you have to offer for others in this situation. When you've been a head coach most of your career and you've had 2 years as an assistant, basically, mm-hmm. how do you go about, and how do you recommend people go about building relationships that act as the role of a head coach for you that you never really had, right? Because you've been in the big seat the whole time. And so how are you out there networking? How are you reaching out to others? What process did you use throughout your career to develop those relationships where, you have a truth teller, right? And you have people that are serving that role for you, because you only had those first couple of years as an assistant.
It's interesting. I had this conversation the other day. I didn't really network. I never networked. What I did was I tried to work really hard at the craft of the game. Now, within the course of that, I might say, wow, the guy at Chabot College, Rich Botello, I really like the way he runs his offense. And then I would talk to him about it. Mm-hmm. Or I might, it might be Mike Dunlap, God, we're gonna be a little more aggressive this year and get on the ball. So let me talk to him about what that might entail. Mm-hmm. Do I need to do more disadvantage drills? But I never network these relationships. And I mean, I wrote down a list. I'm gonna look now. I'll just read them all to you. Bob Ackley, my JV coach, Terry Battenberg, Dick Davey, Carol Williams, Jerry Miller, John Carson, Bob Burton, Bob Williams, Steve Williams, Mike Dunlap, Steve Wright, Bob Thomason, Len Stevens, Al Mann, Freddie Gordon, Pistakini, Scott Graydon, Steve Coach Emilio. All those came from being at coaching clinics and also seeking them out, going to a practice and watching, going with Coach Carson when he was in American River, going, okay, what's this rubber band zone? I don't understand that. And then, but I never went out of my way to network to get a job. What I did is I worked hard at my craft. And then when it became okay, I'm struggling in this area, let me talk to somebody about it. Mm-hmm. And then those relationships flourished.
The irony of that, the names that you just read that many of the listeners won't know, but many of those people were the people sitting across the bench from you, which, is an interesting dynamic when you are reaching out for help and on certain aspects of the game, and that's the place you go. You talk a little bit about that and the confidence and the comfort level that you had to reach in order to be able to do that?
Well, I think the confidence comes from if you realize that we're all insecure and realize that none of us have all the answers, and that I think that comes back to being really honest. I mean, when you really look at your team sometimes, and I remember, and I'll come back to when I was at Lassen College, and we played really hard the first couple of years, but we won 21 games. I'm trying to remember 21 and 24 or something, but we underachieved. Mm-hmm. We were better than that. And I felt that a big part of that was us offensively. I thought we played really hard, but I thought just our shot selection wasn't great. I didn't think we were running was great, the whole deal. So again, I'll mention a guy named Rich Botello, who I think to this day, in my mind, is a good offensive coach. I mean, good as coach, period. But his guys offensively were like a clinic, like a machine. And then when you talk to him, what you always find out something that you don't expect to. And here's what he said. He goes, yeah, it's not so much me, it's who I recruit. So what do you mean? Well, if you notice, I got a lot of O'Dowd kids, a lot of private school kids, a lot of kids from structured programs who have been coached. So they understand ball reversal. They understand passing the ball away from the defense. They understand. He goes, now, here's what we do, but I think it's what you start with. And then that really shaped me that, okay, if the guy doesn't fit, if he's not, I'll use this word, if he plays in a mindless fashion, don't recruit him. Don't. He's got to be mindful. If he's not mindful, it won't work for me.
Right. Well, and on that note, even when you were back at Delta, there were very specific schools that you consistently recruited from because you knew what you were getting per se. And that's the example you just used. And as you've gone through your journey as a coach, right, going all the way back to Casa Roble to where you are now, how would you say you have changed in your approach? How has your approach to coaching changed? If you could identify a few things where you're looking back at that young guy now and you're looking at this young guy now, who's a little bit older, but still very young. How has your approach to coaching changed?
I think number one, just be, again, I keep talking about patience, be more patient. Everything doesn't have to be done today, and everything doesn't have to be done perfect. And also the main thing is be more patient with yourself. Mm-hmm. Like, I think I'm pretty patient with most others, but not as well. I shouldn't say it. I'm more patient with other people than I am with myself. But here's the thing, and everybody wants to talk about this, and I strongly disagree on this. Everybody will tell you today's kid's different. He's not as good a kid. He's this, he's that, da, 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 da. I don't believe that. What I believe is this: good kids want order. They want there to be order. They want to know what they can do, what they can't do, and they want to know that everybody else is going to do it. So they want structure, and they want discipline. What has changed is this: you have to tell them why more. Now, not why are we leaving? Why is the bus leaving at 8 a.m? That's not what I'm talking about. Like, I'll give a simple example. Well, like, coach, how come like I need to, why would on the on ball, would we lower it if the guy's going under the screen? Well, here's why. Because when he goes under it, you lower the screen. So now the shot you're going to get is going to be closer. Okay. Just dumb example, but one example. You inherently build in the why before they even ask, because this generation of kids, they've been raised to, and really, it's not a bad thing. It forces you to be a better coach. You have to think upfront about what are the questions they potentially could ask. And I'm not talking about excuses. I'm talking about real questions. Like, okay, coach, so you don't, when the ball's driven middle, you want us to fan out closer to our guy and guard a 3-point line more, as opposed to, why is that? You explain why, whatever it may be. Well, why do we believe that? I mean, I could think of a million things.
Your point is taken. It's what Eddie said in his interview, which was, don't take everything, I forget the word he used, as an attack. It's more just thinking they want to know why. And it's not, we're in a different era of, coach's word, teacher's word, parents' word is the be all and end all. This generation is more informed. They have the world at their fingertips on the internet, and they can get knowledge. We are no longer the keepers of all knowledge. And it's just what you said. It's recognizing that and doing your work early so that it's received in the way you wish it were.
I believe you are recruiting them. I think you're recruiting everybody who you interact with every day. They're either going to buy in or they're not. Now, just go back to players. You're recruiting them, not recruiting them. Hey, you're not going to transfer, are you? I don't mean that. But you're recruiting them with your knowledge, with the why, with how it all makes sense, with your investment in them, your time commitment with them. The fact good players want to be coached, they want to get better. If they think you can make them better, they're going to be really bought in. Here's my point. If you can get them to understand why and then show them how, they will really buy in if they can really understand the why. Now you actually have them bought in more because they understand the why. Where before it was, here's how you do it, now go do it. Well, if you're not wholeheartedly bought into the why, you're just kind of doing it to do it. So there is, I'll just say this, the quote, why generation makes you a better coach, in my opinion, because you have to prep for it up front.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. You briefly touched on it earlier when you mentioned that academics is a foundational principle that you've always brought into your programs. And you mentioned the ripple effect that has on culture. Are there other things that you do that have come with you at every stop that may be a little bit less tangible or more tangible that others, might benefit from hearing that really has a transformational ripple effect in your culture?
I think the main thing is I'll give you a couple examples. We do one, we call it Big Brother, Little Brother, where a returner comes in and a new guy goes, so I'm a returner, you're new. So I have to meet you We have to sit down. You have to tell me your life story, and I have to write down notes. And then I write a 1 page, no more than a page, about you. And then you do the same with me. So you go around the team. It takes 13 weeks to do. And then, you give them to the coach. And what's cool is you read them and you learn a lot about each guy too. Now, sometimes we'll prompt them. We'll say, like Brandon does a great job with this, the assistants. They'll say, okay, this week I want you to talk about what you fear the most, or what you value the most, or what you're feeling about the current state of the country. Are you afraid, or are you, whatever it may be. So within that, I call it big brother, little brother. You go around there and you always start the returners with the new guys, but eventually it ends up being returners on returners, new guys on new guys. Because for us, we have 16 guys, so that's 15 weeks it's going to take, or is it 16 weeks? I'm not good at math, whatever it is. So it's going to take that long. And they have now invested. I keep saying this, the number one way to invest in people is time spent. There is no other way. It's time spent. And my point is, now they've invested time in each other. They've learned about each other. They will find some commonality. They will find some differences, all of which are good.
Yep.
You will learn. It goes from there. Now, the other part, we started, Bruce Brandon's idea. I think it was Virginia said Tony Bennett has what he calls a safe chair. And you're allowed to sit up front, and we ask you questions, and you talk about anything, and guys share their stories, and you learn about their background, who they are. And also, what we've tried to do, honestly, is turn every chair into the safe chair. We start saying, hey, you're in the safe chair. Whatever you say is fine. Can't be held. It cannot and will not be used against you. But when you really get to the safe chair, the one we're talking about where they sit in front of the room, you want them to feel like you're trying to learn, and you want them to say very candidly what they think, and they've got to feel it will not be held against them. So this culture of honesty, this culture of the brotherhood, this culture of, there's a million other things, being a great teammate, this, that, all those things. I think it starts to end up being where, and the analogy I give, and the guys get tired of hearing this, it's like the geese. You ever watch the geese fly? They're in the shape of a V. Okay, now what I didn't understand is that some of them are not flying. They're just resting. And some of them are flying, and the centrifugal force is carrying them along. Then they switch spots. Okay, so at some point in time, we're all going to have to carry each other. So I like the geese analogy. I always say everybody is going to have to serve. You have to serve each other on given days. Some days, some guys need more than you do. Some days, whatever, but we all must serve each other. Coaches, players, everybody involved.
Absolutely. Thanks for that analogy. I think that's great. And it's something I'll definitely steal as we move forward. What do you think, if you were to consolidate in a few bullet points, and you had an opportunity to talk with Coach Katz first day at Casa Roble, or first day at Delta, or first day at Sac State?
Sylvan Junior High, 7th grade, 1977.
We'll throw that one in as well. But what advice would you offer yourself if you had the opportunity to? And I don't mean like, what would you do differently? But, you've seen this movie now, and you have the keys to the test. What would you offer people?
I think the key is to get really good at your craft. So bear with me on this. You can win enough to have the fruits of relationships come back towards you. Now, here's what I'll say. It's very simple. It's harder to develop that when you don't win. Now, winning, I've always said, is validation of what you're selling. So just go back. Teams I've had that were 30-2 or whatever, or 25-7, or those guys, they bought everything, and their relationships to this day are really tight. Now, I had a few teams that didn't do quite as well, especially my first years, a couple of years at Sac State, and they weren't very close. They're very close. And the point is, and they don't have the ability to really buy in to what you're doing. So they don't give you back what you would like to have, which is that relationship. Because real simple, you don't have enough great times around each other. Now you're going to say that's a front runner approach, and I'm going to say it's not. I'm going to say work really hard so you can have those. Because for me, the most important and the most rewarding thing is the relationships that you have. And I heard Brandon the other day ask the question, how come I can't have those relationships while I'm coaching? I'm going to give you a simple answer. It's a very simple answer. Because the pressure to win is too great. Mm-hmm. And the pressure to win, no matter what we want to say, I don't speak for Brandon, but I believe this. The pressure to win is so great that tends to be the focus. Now, what I always said, I like the off season better than during the season, because the off season, you have 8 months of really enjoying your players, really enjoying them, getting to know them, and really drinking the moment in. Now, during the season, it moves at the speed of sound. You are in the black hole. You don't know what day of the week it is. Every day is the same. There's just not time for that. I remember this, and I've said this 100 times. It's almost blasphemy. I hate to say it. Phil Ritchie's one of the closest players I've ever had to me. I don't remember him playing for me. I don't remember him making a basket in a game, because I was so fixated on competing and winning that I didn't get a chance to sit back and go, wow, he's pretty good, isn't he? I never got a chance to do that. Now, when I happen to pop in a tape and I go, holy moly, was he good? Now, of course, I knew he was really good, but you're too busy. The competitor in all of us supersedes everything. And as a result, I don't want to use the word compromise. The relationships aren't compromised, but they're just not as enjoyed. I say the off season. It's why I felt so cheated this year. I love the off season with the guys, especially the spring, when you can talk to the seniors about what they're going to do, and the young guys are excited, and you can talk about how you beat this team or that team, and the pressure's not there.
And that's where the process is developed. And when you're in season, as you said, the pressure, especially at your level, is so ramped up on the outcome that, to a certain degree, those relationships are developed not during the time when you're together playing basketball, but the time when you're doing other things.
No question. And I always try to say this, and I do believe this. I tell players, I say, hey, our relationship will truly begin when you are not playing for me anymore. It will truly, when I say begin, meaning it'll be a different relationship. We'll be friends. You can't really be their friend when you're coaching them. You certainly can be their mentor, their big brother figure, their father figure, all the above. But when they're done, I think it truly begins, because now it's like, oh, hey, what can I do for you? OC, what can I do for you? CJ, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? Now, all of a sudden, they look at you and go, holy moly, this is different. Wow. Because I do believe that. I think this is just me personally. I don't want to speak for anybody else. I feel like I have an obligation to really give back to our guys when they're done playing, because I know what they did for me. I know. And I mean, everybody will say, oh yeah, Phil Ritchie, he's a player of the year and all these national 30 a game or whatever he was. Not just him, the 15th guy, not just him. 15th guy that you got a lot of respect for, because he saw the game through your eyes and he echoed what you believed, and he maybe he was a great tutor in study hall to a guy who wasn't as good a student. I mean, it's
interesting, and I think that there's a certain aspect of that's true, right? And the guys that are 15th guys or first guys or wherever they are on the team, they're one of your guys, and as you pour into them and they pour back into you, that relationship, the constraints on it come off a little bit when you're no longer the disciplinarian per se, and you can step into a role of walking alongside them a little bit more. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about our profession. You mentioned, you pulled out your list and read off all these names, and I don't want to put you on the spot and make you feel like you're going to forget somebody, but if you're looking at that list there and there's anything that you can offer, and I put Brandon on the spot on this as well, so I might as well do it to you, but things that were key learnings that you got out of anybody on that list that have really, really helped you along your way that could probably help some other people? Are there any of those as you look down that list that you can share?
There's a million of them, but I will tell you, there's one guy, and the guy, Terry Battenberg. Now, I met Terry when I was about 20, and he'd written the first book ever on post play, and his teams were phenomenal at El Dorado and Ponderosa and everywhere. And he eventually became the coach at American River. At 25 years old, he was the head coach at Montana Tech, and he worked under Ralph Miller at Oregon State. So I sought Terry out. I'd invite him to work my camp, take him out to lunch, and we'd talk. So the relationship grew to this day, and we're still very close. Here's what he really convinced me. He said, "Hey, look," he called me Catman. Catman, here's the deal. You need to develop your craft here at this level, but then you need to go be a graduate assistant for somebody. That's what if you want to figure out if you want to be a college coach, and number one, learn basketball. What you need to do, pick out where you want to go work and who you want to work for. Get a master's. You'll have that experience of figuring out, is this what I want, Division I level or not? Where do I fit in as JC Division II, or maybe it's high school? Mm-hmm. So go do that. And in the process, you'll learn basketball. You'll become a better coach, and it'll open up all kinds of opportunities for you. So I remember hearing Carol Williams speak at the South Tahoe Clinic years ago, and I remember just sitting there, and there were a lot of speakers there. There's some big names there. He was not the biggest name, I'd tell you that. I remember in my mind going, all right, I'm going to work for him. I'm going to work for him. So I had already been working the camp there at Santa Clara. But so what I just did, I made my mind up when the year was over. I just picked the phone up and called Dick Davey. It's about this simple. "Hey, Dick, this is Brian Katz. What do you think the odds of becoming Santa Clara as a graduate assistant are?" He was just like, I'll have Carol. So Carol said, "Hey, drive on down." I met him that's when they played, I don't even want to call it AAU. They called it Slam and Jam or something over at USF. And we sat there about 4 hours and watched games. And he just talked to me, said, "All right, here's the deal, man. You're going to have to make it happen. Like, we'll pay for your master's degree, but everything else, you're going to have to make it happen." Well, there was no decision on my part. Like, I wasn't like that summer, I stayed in they figured out a way for me to stay in the San Jose State frat house down below in the bottom deal. They didn't even know I was there. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause he knew the person that owned it. And so like literally no one knew. I left before the sun came up and came back afterward in a 1-bedroom little deal. But like, I never thought twice, like, am I going to do this? Mm-hmm. Like, of course you're going to do this. This is Carol Williams. This is Santa Clara. Right. Are you kidding? What an opportunity.
That's great. I love it. I love it. And you referenced Coach Battenberg, who, is a legend in the Sacramento area and has a lot to offer. If you haven't had an opportunity to read his book, it's a great read, lots of knowledge there. One more question, and this is a definite curveball, but the majority of this has been focused on, college, because that's what you've been doing for 25, 26 years at this point, if not longer. What is the biggest difference that you can point out to people that are kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, trying to figure out what path is best for them? How would you identify the differences between the two and what those deciding factors were in your mind?
Well, I think the biggest deciding factor will be your family. And here's why. So the college thing is literally, it's 24/7, 365. It's the lifestyle is really a grind. It's very different. High school and JC, you can control your life. Mm-hmm. You can control your life. So kind of comes back to like, for me, the real part of my deal was I taught English when I coached high school 11 years. And I taught it with pride, and I wanted to do it good, but I couldn't get basketball off my mind all during the day. Mm-hmm. And I felt like my day didn't start till 3 o'clock. And the other part was I realized I couldn't go at this pace doing what I'll call 2 full-time jobs. So you're going to have to get rid of one. So my idea was, which one do you love? Well, that was easy. I mean, I love teaching English, but coaching basketball now, that wasn't even a choice. So for me, it was all about like, can your family understand it's not 9 to 5? And this is what I tell people. used to tell my wife, Lori, I'd say, Lord, look, here's the deal. At 4:50, now I can tell you I'm going to be home at 6. It was an hour commute from Delta. But if at 4:59, if a guy twists his ankle, I'm not going to look at my watch and say, hey, I got to be home by 6. I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. So what I would say is, like, your family, how many kids do you have? What's your situation? All of that. But ultimately, in the end, they will all have to really, really, really be on board, because people think you're making this up now. Like, you'll go 400 or 500 days without a day off. Mm-hmm. We're not making that up. You will, because as soon as the year's over, it's on to recruiting, then it's back on to coaching your guys, and it's sometimes you're doing them all. So what I would just say is, like, if you want security and you want to coach and you want to enjoy developing young people who stay at the high school level and even the JC level, you can do it at the JC level. But what I would say is beyond that, at each phase you go up, there's going to be more risk reward and there's going to be more pressure. And then what is your ability to, I always say this, like, contain your anxiety, mm-hmm. and yet still let it not ruin your family or your personal life. Now, dumb example, people always say to me, and they'll say that, I think if I have one or two discerning abilities, I have 2 things I'm pretty good at. One is sleeping. I can go to bed I can fall asleep in this chair right now. I get up at 4. That's 8 hours. It's okay. And 2, the ability to compartmentalize. Mm-hmm. So, like, part of the reason I want to get up early and I want to get to the office at, say, 5 or 6 and work, because I want to be done. So when I drive off the lot, like, I've compartmentalized. So now I'm home. It's home. Mm-hmm. I'm not thinking about that. And when I'm there coaching, I'm not thinking about my family. When I say that, you know what I mean, generally speaking. But I think the key is, do you have the ability to compartmentalize? Now, when I first got into this thing, oh my God, you're working in the evening and you're trying to change the kid's diaper and you're taking this call and you're trying to figure out a practice plan. No. Now, you can do that. Some people I'm not a good multitasker. I'm not. Like, for me, I'm doing my practice plan. Okay, I'm working on a schedule. Okay, I'm boom. I'm doing this. And go great guns. Put in all the inordinate hours. Like, for me, Sunday right now, it's real simple. Get up probably at 5 or 6, the office by 6:37. Work from about 7 till about noon, which tends up being 1 usually. Now, but when I'm home, when I drive off that lot at noon or 1, I'm home, because mm-hmm. I've done my work. Mm-hmm. So do you have the ability to compartmentalize? And then your family, and everybody's dynamic, will they be able to support you in that endeavor? Mm-hmm. And if they can't, then you got to be smart enough to understand that, mm-hmm. and stay where you need to stay. Right. And so, because it's always a team. It's always about you and your family, you and your wife, you and your kids. You're a team. I know that's a long answer, but I think that you have to be real about it, because it can't just be about you. If it is, you won't be a good coach and you won't be a good family, and you won't have either one.
Well, that's a great way to end this. And I think the long answer, lots of takeaways in there, is what's your family situation, right? What are the systems you have in place to create balance, if you want to use that word, and allow you to have both of those things, and make sure that you're at the right place so that, the stress at home is not getting in the way of what you love to do. Coach, this has been awesome. It's great to talk to you as always. Appreciate you taking the time to share your wisdom with the world out there and pass on what you've learned over the years.
I just wanted to be on the #1 rated, podcast in all of America, which it soon will be. I would say this, with all of coaches in America who value what we do, which is awesome. I remember I called you up. I said, hey, I want to be on your deal, man. I love talking basketball with
Absolutely.
I try to do. I really do. I think it's great. So thank you.
Absolutely, Coach. Well, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.